Freedom of speech has been coveted by millions of human beings generation upon generation. Jails and execution has been the fate of many of them, while others have chosen to take their lives in acts of protest. I am going to share with you two compelling stories that show how through extreme measures people have fought for the very right that all of us sitting in this room today have, and that's freedom of speech. In 1963, an adroit Buddhist monk by the name of Thich Quang Duc walked into a busy intersection in Saigon, Vietnam. This intersection was very busy. There were other monks all around the roads, as well as bystanders. And Thich was accompanied by a fellow monk. And they walked into the middle of this intersection, and Thich Quang Duc sat down, and his fellow monk very peacefully doused them with gasoline. He poured it on his head, on his robe, all over his body until he was completely drenched in gasoline. After he did this, he very respectfully bowed to him, and he walked backwards, pouring a line of gasoline. And when he was at a safe distance, he very gingerly lit the gasoline. And Thich Quang Duc was engulfed in flames immediately. And you might be asking yourself, why? Why did he do such an extreme act? And the reason is simple. He wanted something that you and I have in this room, and that's freedom of speech. You see, in 1963, in Vietnam, Catholicism was taking hold of this country, and Buddhism was being prohibited from people practicing Buddhism. They were being prohibited to have this freedom. So this was a way that he and his fellow monks protested and demonstrated what they were willing to do to be able to express themselves freely. In another case, in 1947, there was a 17-year-old German boy. His name, Helmut Gunnar Hübner. And Helmut had gotten a transistor radio where he was allowed to listen to Nazi propaganda. And that's what he did. And somehow he figured out that he could get a signal from Britain. So he started to listen to British propaganda, which he believed, and he agreed with the things he was hearing on this transistor radio. And I might add that he was doing this illegally, because you could not listen to anything except German Nazi propaganda on the radio. You listened to what they said you were going to listen to. So he believed this, and he printed up some flyers. He was an adroit young man. and he printed up some flyers, and he spread them around the town where he lived in. And he was caught doing this. So he was jailed. While he was in jail, he was beaten, he was tortured for weeks. He went through a trial, and he was found guilty for treason, and he was sentenced to death. And if being sentenced to death was not enough, he was sentenced to death by beheading via guillotine. His family appealed, and the Führer himself denied their appeal, saying that he was simply too dangerous to society. Now, again, what was his reason? His reason was to have what you and I have, freedom of speech. Helmut was given the opportunity to write 3 letters the day that he was going to be executed. He wrote one to his grandmother, his mother, and to his church. Only the church letter survived. And this is not a religious speech, but I'm just going to read the ending of the letter that he wrote to the church. And it says, "I am very thankful to my Heavenly Father that this agonizing life is coming to an end this evening. I could not stand it any longer anyway. My Father in heaven knows that I have done nothing wrong. I know that God lives, and He will be the proper judge in this matter. Until our happy reunion in that better world, I remain your friend and brother in the gospel, Helmut." To conclude my speech, I just want to summarize that I have given you 2 examples, extreme examples, of people that have made the ultimate sacrifice to be able to express themselves freely. And if I could just ask for a moment for you to think of issues that you do not agree with. Perhaps Obamacare, you might agree, you might not agree. And then just ask yourself, are you afraid to express yourself? And that's a blessing that we have here, that we have the ability and the freedom to express ourselves. We have a gift that needs to be nurtured and used. And I will close with a statement that a professor of mine said, and that was, "I can share my views, and you can choose to accept them or not." Mr. Postmaster.